Ne feledkezz feliratkozni legközelebb is. Kár lenne a lelkedért.
Én is kérek egy kis pasztázást, mert rögtön túlhevülök. Gacsi hüper gacsív, csak viccelek, azt akartam mondani, hogy 7.
Rendben, Devi. Így akarsz játszani? Így játszunk. Mondd ki még egyszer, hogy 7. Na jó van. Oké. Szóval. Kicsit késtem. Semmi baj. Az van. 3D printert bizonyám. 3D printert biztos. De rendesen működik. Hát, működött még az elején.
Köszönöm a feliratkozást. A lelkedet nem gyújtjuk be ebben a hónapban.
7.
Hol az igazi pisztoly? Tehát, nagyon szépen köszönöm. Nagyon szépen köszi. Tehát, az van, hogy kicsit elkezdtem magam mögött rendet rakni. Kurva magasan van a zöld háttér.
Köszönöm a feliratkozást. A lelkedet nem gyújtjuk be ebben a hónapban.
Alexovics Rainbow-szia, Alexovics, szia, na haló.
Na haló, nagyon szépen köszönöm Brolek. Szóval elkezdtem kipakolni, és megtaláltam a régi 3D printed projektjeimet, mint például ezt a Magnumot. 44-es. Tudunk vele orosz rulettezni. Hát most nem halok meg. Na! Oh. Well, shit. Hát nem tudom megbízható azt mondani. Na! Szarok rá. Majd a CSI megtalálja. Az csikkes Jimmy. Szia mindenki egyébként. Egész jó hangulatban vagyok. Szóval ja, most itt nagy takarítást csinálok. Pakolok, takarítok, úgyhogy kicsit el voltam késve, mert elnéztem az időt, de semmi baj, bepótoljuk. Úgyhogy itt vagyunk. Meggyógyultál? Nem nagyon, de iszogatom. Itt van például a... Itt van, ezt fogom meginni. Igen. Invisible folyadék. Azt mondják, hogy a potionok nem igaziak, érted? Itt azt is tisztom. Azt mondják, hogy potion nem létezik. Nem tudják az igazat. Persze azt mondták, hogy potion nem létezik, mert lelőtte mindet. Na, kálciumpezsgő tabletta. És ilyen furán radioaktív zöld. Úgy néz ki, pont tök jó a háttérrel együtt. Magnézium pezsgő tabletta egyébként. Citromos. Ilyen fura zöld színe van. Úgyhogy vitaminozok eszerrel. Van mindenféle vitaminom. Állandóan szedem. A feliratkozót ánuszon keresztül injektálom be. Oh.
Már 7. hónap. Lassan megvan az év. Alexovics Blush.
Nagyon szépen köszönöm, Razor. 1, 2. Nagyon szépen köszönöm mindenkinek. Cukkerok vagytok. Meg Devinek is, meg kiküldött bites hangot, még el se indult a stream. Itt állítgattam, közben már szólt az meg az Ambó Jimmy, ki volt az? Devi és Leviathan. Azt mondja, hogy lehet egyszerre több embert bannolni. Na mindegy, most nem kaptak bant. Picike kis rémálmokat fogunk nézegetni.
Köszönöm
ilyen
a
picikéket.
A lelkedet nem gyújtjuk be ebben a hónapban.
11-es. És kihagyja és mellé lőtt. Jaj ne, 7, na jó, nem is 7, mert hónap.
I'm gonna fucking die. Na, köszönöm szépen, Captain Knuckles. Nagyon szépen köszönöm. 7. hónap már. Nagyon régóta itt vagytok egyébként. Nagyon szépen köszönöm mindenkinek. Nagyon cukik vagytok egyébként. Azért iszok még egy kicsit a radioaktív folyadékomból. Savanyú, mint a bront. Mondom én a Hype Trainre. Nagyon köszi, Leviathan. Olyan cuki vagy, mint egy igazi nyalóka. Meg is nyalnám a te nyalókád. Váltsunk gyorsan. Na. Kinek klippelt, hagyd békén. Ne írt, hagyd az emótot. Na. Szóval. Little Nick Mares 2. Little Nick Moré. Na, és már jött is a klip. Picike Nick Moréket fogunk játszani, abban is 2. Ugye kivittük az 1 még a múltkor, és a...
Figyelem!
Já, geci! Na, bocsánat.
Told be egyszerre. Nagyon szépen köszönöm.
Nagyon szépen köszi egyébként. Devi, hogy ma ilyen adakozóan menős srácol vagy? Csávó meg srác együtt. Srácol. Mindenesetre nagyon szépen köszi. Kapsz egy... Hát ezt elejtettem. Hát ez maradt belőle. Ennyit a 3D printelt fegyverről. Szóval, ja, Random Gaming, Devi kedvence. Nagyon szépen köszönöm egyébként, Devi. Hát ezt is elrontottam. Na, Tupek szerint meg tök szar a stream. Ezt át fogom írni, meg kezd meg kurva unalmas lenni Tupek. Szegény. Azt kell mondanom, hogy eredetileg ma videót akartam nézni veletek, de megmondom őszintén, ott a videótól elment az életkedvem, pedig csak a feléig néztem el. Nem tudom a sztori végét. Mégpedig, ugye az Internet Historian kirakott egy új videót, gondolom már amúgy mindenki látta, aki néz angolul videókat. Na most az van, hogy nekem az egy fóbiám szerintem. A cave diving, amikor ugye valaki elmegy és hát ugye kéveket explorál, jól tudok magyarul. Nem tudom, hogy ki látta ezt a videót, az a neve, hogy Men in Cave. Hát egy fickó, aki próbál kiásni egy cseppkőbarlanghoz vezető utat. És nem sikerül neki, maradjunk annyiba. Én úgy gondoltam, hogy nézzük meg együtt, de elment tőle az életkedvem, úgyhogy inkább Nick Marét fogunk nyomatni. Jaj, ne, az nagyon rossz. És nem is tudom a sztori végét, de már a felénél úgy voltam vele, hogy na jó van, én ezt nem bírom tovább, de gondoltam, hogy együtt majd megcsináljuk. Bedobták a videó ajánlába, ott láttad meg? Hát igen, ott volt. Nem, mert fel vagyok iratkozva, az elém jött a videó. Yes! A videó ajánlóba találtam meg. Hát csak az a baj, hogy nagyon hosszú, az egy órás ez a videó. Fél órát tudtam vele megnézni, meg cringe-eltem össze-vissza. Nem szeretem az ilyen nagyon kis szűk helyekre beszorulást, maradjunk annyiba. És a faszi, hát így jár, maradjunk annyiba, hogy nagyon-nagyon szűk helyre szorul be. Nagyon szépen köszi a Voyagri. Hát na mindegy. Mit lehet kezdeni a szubbal? Hát ha tartod a kapcsolatot szüleiddel, akkor felhívhatod őket is, elmondhatod, hogy támogatott valaki. A feliratkozót ánuszon keresztül injektálom be. Egy feliratkozással engem. És azt te élvezheted az előnyeit ennek. No ne, nagyon szépen köszi. Szevasz, Rimi! Na, Rimi, te gondolom megnézted a Men in Cave videót. Mi a faszom az emót? Na jó, még úgysem kezdődik addig, hogy lássátok, hogy miről van szó. Mi az emót? What the fuck? Mi az a cica? Úgy látom, hogy Rimi, te megnézted ezt a videót. De... nagyon kegyetlen. Kegyetlenül rossz, bazd meg. Hát elmeséli ezt a történetet az Internet Historian csávó. A feliratkozót ánuszon keresztül injektálom be. Páro, nagyon szépen köszi a 3. hónapot. Most már te is csatlakozhatsz az OnlyFans-embe. Zsákos Bimbo, köszi a bitet. Az hatalmas videó volt. Hát akinek hatalmas videó volt. Nem tudom, megnézzük. Megnézzük? Vagy mindjárt nyomok egy folt. Mert amúgy megnézhetjük, de bazd meg. Hát nem bírom. Hát nem jó ez így. Tehát, hogy pikpak meg lesz a 12 órás. Jó lenne. Amúgy múltkor is baromira élveztem. Nyomnék még egyet. Nyilván nagyon fárasztó volt. Jó, tudod, mint nyomatok egy polt. Csak az a baj, angolul van végig. És nyilván nem fogom nagyon fordítgatni, mert ez rengeteg lenne, és én nem tudok fordítani.
Köszönöm szépen, hogy az Anusomon keresztül iratkoztál fel.
Nagyon szépen köszi Mark Z 501. Ki nem tudom, Bruce kapja be. Igen, de nem ezt szeretném, hanem hogy nem, tehát aki esetleg nem érteni, azt nem fogom tudni fordítani, azon még nem tudom, cringe-e. Na, nyomattam egy polt, hogy videó legyen-e, igen-e vagy nem-e. És akkor nyomatjuk tovább a Little Nightmares 2-t, amit egyébként szeretnék kipróbálni. Nyilván, ha ilyen 50-50 körül marad, akkor marad a gaming, mert azt legalább tudok közben magyarul beszélni, de megmondom őszintén, nem akarom egyedül végignézni azt a videót. Engem az nagyon zavart, a meninkémes videó, de úgy néz ki, hogy elkerülhetetlen lesz a végzetem. Itt vagyunk mindenki, jaj, de jó, köszönöm. Még a Jánoson keresztül feliratkozott ember. Oh! Nagyon szépen köszi. Na hát ebben videónézés lesz. Sajnos. Arról a életben, őszintén nem sok kedvem volt megnézni. Nem, vagy hát, ha így most jobb lesz, hogy közben majd beszélgethetünk. Tünk. Beszélgethetünk. Oké. Hát akkor a Little Kismoré most elmarad. Becsuknád! Basz meg Windows! Hát neked mindig valami faszom bajod van. A bocsi. Már nagyon kell.
Nem sikerült!
Feladatkezelő. Jó kis tudsz ez, jó. Jó lesz rakott program ez. Na végre. Firefox! Jó, YouTube. Be vagyok jelentkezve? Nem vagyok bejelentkezve, nem baj, így is meg tudjuk nézni. Szerintem Man in Cave. Jó. Ez az BMS Black Metal hangok. Majd képzeljétek el egyébként, mielőtt elkezdenénk ezt. Lesz majd zenélő stream, úgy gondoltam. Úgy gondolom, hogy áthozom ide a dobszerkót, és majd csinálunk valami zenélő streamet. Csak az felszetapolni nem lesz egyszerű. Meg azt tudti, hogy tehát mit tudom én dobolni, ugye...
Milyen ügyes kisfiú vagy te.
Na kitalálunk valami baromságot, de szerintem ez jó ötlet. Úgyhogy majd lesz egy ilyesmi is. És akkor majd annyi, hogy most az pont azért pakolok itt, tehát ott most mindenki van az asztalon, mert ezt a nagy asztalt elviszem mögülem, és akkor be tudom ide mögém rakni a dobszerkót. És akkor fogjátok ti is látni, én is fogom monitort látni közben, bár nem tudom, azért annyira jól nem látok, de mindegy. Na! Menin Cavarentum. Úgyhogy lesz zenés. Zene. Na. Well, shit. Nem akarom megnézni ezt a videót. For fucking hell. Na hát ez van. De a sztori végére nagyon kíváncsi vagyok. Úgyhogy... Biztos, hogy akarom ezt. Na mindegy, most már elhatároztuk magunkat, most már megnézzük.
In the state of Kentucky, there is a cave that every now and then demands a sacrifice.
Mielőtt elkezdjük, csak hogyha valaki nem lenne tisztában, hogy miről van szó, vagy nem nagyon tud angolul, de szeretné élvezni ezt a videót. Van ez...
A sacrifice.
Ez a cave. Ez egy cseppkő barlanghoz vezető... Mi a cave magyarul? Látod, hogy miért nem fordítok videókat? Mi a cave magyarul? Barlang. Jó, Daddárió, én is tudom. Jó, oké. Most nagyon okosok lettetek hirtelen. Miután kimondtam. Na,
Győztünk.
Na, egy kb. Ez ilyen hangok jönnek ebből a barlangból ki, és innen vezet egy nagyon keskeny fisfos út a Cseppkő barlangig. Amiről senki nem tudott, csak az a csávó, aki a telek.
Engem nem érdekel.
Nagyon jó, hogy azt bekapcsolva hagytam. És akkor gyakorlatilag innen indulunk. Csak hogyha esetleg valaki mindenben, de nyilván meg fogom állítgatni, mert amúgy csak simán belinkelném a videót.
January 30th, 1925.
Western
A
Time,
man
vagy
walks
hát
towards the
vége.
cave with a kerosene lamp in his hand.
A Western
He hangs up
vége.
his jacket and ducks into a 5-foot opening. The inside of the cave is narrow. He has to drop down on his hands.
Tennél a feliratot tennék. Igazad van. Autogenerált, nincsen normális felirat, úgyhogy az lesz. Nagyon jó, keszi.
And knees, crawling through a passageway filled with jagged rocks and choking dust. Then down a chute he had cleared out months earlier. All of the daylight is gone from here, and this lantern is his only source of light. Ignoring the loose limestone rocks perched directly above him, he is now 100 feet in. And here he reaches the turnaround room. Now they call this the turnaround room because this is the juncture where even experienced cavers say, no thanks, and turn around. Because to continue on means going through this.
Aki ezt megpróbálja élőben, most én ezt nem mondom, hogy meg is érdemli, de ez egy 10 incses lyuk. Mennyi 10 inch felfelé? 30 centi, fasz tudja. 30 centi megy, 30 méter mélyen van egyébként ez a cucc. Ha ott át tudod magad préselni, gratulálok, 25 centi kb. Na, tehát én ugye, nekem már a lábfejem se fér be, tehát én igazából ebből kiszálltam ebből az egészből. Megcsináltam a pesti barlangban. Csikes Jimmy, rendben, éppen onnan érsz, nem?
The squeeze. A gap in the stone of only 9
Jó, ott van 22. Na hát akkor meg aztán...
is a subway sub.
22
Going
centi.
through, he would look exactly like this. His arms will need to be completely at their side, and he will need to exhale so that he can reduce the size of his torso. Gradually, bit by bit, he disappears into the hole. His clothes are caught on sharp gypsum crystals. hooking into him and threatening to hold him in place. But using his feet like paddles, he pushes through. He reaches a wider opening at the other side, then crawls forward towards a ledge. Illuminated here is a 10-foot drop. A rope is already secured around a boulder, which allows him to rappel down. His worn-out leather shoes touch the ground. This is as far as he can go, and it is time for work to begin. What he is working on is another opening. At the moment, it's too small for anyone to fit through, but he will chip away at it until he can shove himself right through the other side. Because on the other side is this. A magnificent and otherworldly cave structure that will be irresistible to tourists. Every day for months he has been removing rocks from this crevice. To him, this is all just routine. So he eases further into the gap.
Tehát, hogy tiszta rutinból csinálja a csávó. Ezt csinálja évek óta, hogy ezt a faszom kis lyukat, ahelyett, hogy először azon a telincses szaron kezden el dolgozni, ahelyett ezt a szaros kis lyukat próbálja először kiásni. Miért? Miért nem először azon dolgozik, hogy oda lehessen jutni? A faszért kell egy olyan helyre bepréselned magad, ahol senki nem fog tudni utána jönni, majd még onnan mész jobbra-balra, lefele, jobbra, és akkor ott van, és ott ásol. A fasznak, miért nem az elejétől kezded? Na mindegy, ez csak... Mert azért nem fizetnek. Mert akkor más is, ez a saját telkén van. Tehát hiába megy be más, onnan lelőheted. Ez Amerika. Főleg, hogy Western Amerika után vagyunk egy nagyon picivel. Itt a shotgunok még mindig domináltak mindent, mint a handba. Egyszer szorulj be. Na, pont ezt mondom. Tehát, hogy...
he contorts his body through.
Mindegy, megy egy csávó.
The sides of his torso so close that his arms are pinned to the side of his body. He once again paddles his feet to inch down. Then, about halfway, he stops. The lantern. It's starting to dim. He will need to go all the way back to the surface to refuel the thing. He sighs. He slowly shuffles back out, pushing the lantern with his shoulder. Then, oh no. Dim,
oh no.
Crack, darkness. He has knocked over the lamp, and it has broken. Now the man didn't... He had been caught in the dark before, and he could make his way back by feel alone. So he continues worming out, leveraging his foot against what he thinks is the cave wall. But that is not the cave wall. That is in fact a rock protruding from the ceiling. As soon as he puts his weight against the rock, it breaks loose. A solid piece weighing 15 kilograms lands directly on his ankle. It aches. But he's okay. It doesn't feel as though his ankle is broken, just badly bruised and caught underneath the rock. So he shuffles to move the rock away. Suddenly, gravel. A lot of gravel. It falls onto his feet, his legs, his torso, and the weight of it all forces the wedged rock deeper into the gap underneath his foot. Pinned. He tries to push forward. He cannot. He tries to inch backwards. He cannot. He is stuck.
Konkrétan élve eltemetve. Egy ilyen 20 centis koporsóba, ami minden fala tömény kő. Egyszerűen, hogy... Tehát,
borzalmas horror!
Nekem százalékosan mérve egy ilyen Minecrafton kívül egy ilyen barlang exploration körülbelül 1%-ig érdekel. Ezután ez egy 0,02-re ment le.
This is Sand Cave.
Engem nem érdekel.
This man is Floyd Collins.
Engem nem
He
érdekel.
is trapped in absolute darkness, 60 feet deep below the earth, all of his limbs held in place at the very bottom of this.
Borzalmas horror!
Na, oda menjél utána. Na figyelj, ez viszont az kurva hangos, és én szerintem ezt most kikapcsolom. Vagy... Nem. Tehát hiába küldöztem, lesz hangja, úgyhogy ne küldj. Mert nézzük a videót, és non-stop random hangok. Úgy érzem, hogy ez most így ne. Gaming közben oké. Most úgy nem volt a legjobb. A csávó 22-3 éves, élve eltemette éppen magát. Két óráig tart csak oda menni. Ma nem volt gaming, mert ezt a fantasztikus videót szavaztuk meg, hogy ez legyen. Ami ugye a legjobb a világon, tehát hogy... Deus, jó? Oké, bocsi, csak kikapcsoltam ugye a cuccot. Hát na.
But before I tell you what happens next, ad time. Speaking of people trapped in
A
a
reklám.
cave, World of Tanks.
Igen, a kedvenc játékom.
Game I have ever played. It is the only game I have ever played. It's like cars, but tanks. Picture this: you're a hot new T-34-85M, and
Így fogunk kinézni, ha World of Tanks
some
közül.
Cromwell B tank-bagged your entire family.
Nem skippelem le, mert nyilván az már nagyon geci lenne, hogy nem elég, hogy a csávó videójából csinálok streamet, de még az edet is azt skippelem. Mielőtt Devi szponzor blokkolna. Ez a minimum, amit meg tudunk tenni.
Imagine a world war, but there are tanks involved this time.
Hogy megnézzük a World of Tanks-es reklámot.
When you've seen as many messed up tanks as I have, you get a little cynical about the world.
Csak World of Tanks-et ne.
You can collectivize and customize them all. Massive battles where you can constantly team kill and ruin other people's good time.
What the f***? I'm on your f***! Yeah!
Did I mention it's historically accurate?
Jó
especially
reklám,
the
nem?
Japanese robot tanks. Ooh, look, the tanks are kissing. Progressive. Use the invite code TANKMANIA and get the Excelsior. 250k credits. Other stuff. Go to the link in the description and use the invite code TANKMANIA.
Ja, szerintem ez ennyi volt. De mondom, ez a minimum, amit meg tudunk tenni, hogy megnézzük. Ha már megnézzük a videóját.
While you play the game. Perfection. I'm contractually obliged to say thank you for being a friend. Such no.
De egyébként legalább kreatívkodik vele, persze. Azt is megcsinálták volna, hogy leírják mondatról mondatra, hogy és hallottál már a Game of Tranky Minky? Tehát így ez azért jobb azért.
Collins is still in the dark, unable to move. His left arm was pinned underneath his
Na,
torso.
szóval a csávó
His
elvehetemetve itt
right by the
tartottunk.
rock ceiling above. Beneath him, sharp crystal shards dug into his skin. Ice thawed, traced across the ceiling and dripped down directly onto his face, pooling underneath him. The water was a consistent 54 degrees. Floyd tried to breathe calmly in the concentrated dark. When he did attempt to shuffle, more gravel and rocks would tumble from above and pile onto his feet, so nothing would work. He clawed at the cave walls till his fingertips were bloody, and he realized that there was only one option left. Call out for help. But wait. Who is Floyd, and why did he even go into a dangerous cave?
Na jön a backstory.
Floyd has been exploring the caves of Kentucky since he was nearly 6 years old. And as he grew up, he gained a reputation for being a very daring caver. He would dive into some hole on one side of town and emerge miles away on someone else's property.
Sup?
He grew up and he became embroiled in the Kentucky Cave Wars. Now, there's way too much to go into here, but the summary version is there's this huge network of interconnected caves called Mammoth Caves. It's actually the largest cave system in the world. And there's a city right in the middle of it. Cave City, real name. So, of course, there are dozens of cave entrances on private property all over the place. Now, farmland in this region has very poor soil, and things do not grow well here. So, cave tourism as a source of income quickly became the prominent thing. However, a problem. There are a very large number of caves, but there are only a limited number of tourists. So competition rapidly escalated. Visit my cave. No. Visit my cave. Big signs were erected saying, tourists, come to me. Mine is definitely open. Mine is the best. But then competitors would respond by saying, hey, by the way, we're open, but don't go to that one over there. It's really shitty. In fact, it's dangerous. This kept going further. By the end, they were blocking off the trail to each other's property, beating each other in the streets, and hiring people called cappers.
Megérkeztünk 40-es évekbeli Amerikában.
And tell tourists, no, you can't go in there. That one? No, it's illegal. Despite the fierce competition, Floyd found a cave on his property and he started advertising it to tourists. Of course, very few came. All right, he thought, what if I found something really special and unique? Then surely people would have to come to my cave to see it. So he kept exploring until he found this hollow. It was filled with big gypsum crystals, and when you were in there, it felt like a completely alien world. But it was barely accessible. This small tunnel is the only way in. He would need to dig for months to open it up to tourists, but he knew he could do it. Back to the competition. They knew the value of this cave. They knew the potential, they wanted it for themselves, and they wanted Collins gone. One time, 5 of them just wandered onto Floyd's property and demanded he hand over the lease. When he refused, they just started beating the shit out of him. This only stopped when Floyd's brother, Homer, marched out with a shotgun and chased them all off.
Szóval, egyébként, mert ugye az elején volt róla szó, hogy mások is tudták-e, valószínűleg köztudottan volt, hogy ott volt a property-ük alatt az a barlang, amiből le lehetett érni a cseppkő barlangot, de ugye, mivel az ő property-ükön van, ez ugye Amerikában úgy van megcsinálva, hogy nem, tehát hiába van valami, tehát ha találsz a telkeden egy kurva nagy gyémántot, akkor az a tied. Mert itthon ugye az lenne, hogy találsz egy kurva nagy gyémántot, aztán egyből Magyarország, ami a földön van, az Orbánéké, tehát ez lenne belőle, ugye? Tehát itt ugye jön a redneck meeting time, azaz. Tehát így jönnek, azt agyonvernek, hogyha nem tetszik nekik, hogy mit csinálsz. Mondjuk simán lelőhették volna őket, mert ugye Amerikában ez tök legális. Valaki bemegy keménykedni a telkedre, akkor őt lelőheted. Nyilván nem mindenki gyilkos. Hajrá Magyarország, de hogy igen.
He spent 12 hours a day, every day, for months, clearing gravel and stone, chipping away at that passage. He would open it up to tourists, make his cave an incredible attraction, and make his dreams come true.
Lett volna, ha nem temeti el magát,
so
igen.
There's Floyd in the dark, yelling out for help. He's at the start of a very tiring loop. Sleep, wake, yell. Sleep, wake, yell. Hours passed. His voice gave in. Arms tingled numb. Pain radiating up his ankle. Here he remained in the dark for the next 23 hours.
Ami azért kurva sok.
Quickly you might wonder, how come no one's come for him after 23 hours? Well, Sand Cave resides on a 200-acre farm. There are several homes on this property with other families. One of them, of course, is Colin's house, where Floyd's father, Lee, resides. Now, Lee and Floyd constantly get into fights about how to run things. Lee wants his son to concentrate on farming, and Floyd wants to concentrate on cave tourism. Arguments would often get heated. And he was also a bit of a drunk. It was doubtful that he would even notice if his son Floyd was missing. Also not helping things, Floyd regularly lodged at 2 other homes on the farm. So when he didn't return to one host, they would presume that he was staying with the other. And, even worse than that, he had recently spent 30 hours in a cave. So disappearing for this length of time wasn't seen as abnormal. Regardless, around the 23-hour mark, a few locals started to suspect that, hey, something might be wrong, and they went to check up on him. And here, they spotted his jacket, still hung up. Unusual. They went deeper. There was only one person small enough to make it as far as the turnaround room. This was a 17-year-old Jewel Estes. He refused to go into the squeeze, but it was close enough to call Colin's name. Floyd! And Collins yelled.
Voice acting.
Estes emerges from the cave.
Okay, we know he's trapped, and we know where he is.
So, locals started to gather outside. Out of my way. Say a bunch of men who would each show up and take turns heading into the cave in an attempt to reach Collins. But once they reached the turnaround room...
Nope.
Akartam mondani, hogy mindenki csak eddig volt menő, ez ilyen igazi magyar volt, hogy így, majd micsoda, majd én kihozom a gyereket. Bementek, ott volt a 20 centis rész, nekem mennem kell, gyerekek, amúgy sem hoztam magammal üdítőt. Nem, ez inkább ez ilyen ungari se, hogy bementek, és így, amint meglátták a point of no return-t, abban a pillanatban, nekem amúgy is, a gázt úgy hagytam. Nincs is gázvezeték a lakásba, de úgy hagytam. Körülbelül 20 percet láttam egyébként a videóból, utána már nekem is tök új lesz.
They would fail to reach him, emerging from the cave.
De erre nem emlékeztem.
Cursing. Out of my way, I would say, as they were heading in the reverse direction. So a few more hours passed. Word would spread around town. Dozens of locals from Cave City started to gather outside. Over in Louisville, Floyd's 22-year-old brother, Homer, he gets a phone call.
Hello? I see. My brother. He's trapped in a cave?
Nagyon bírom, hogy youtuberek
Homer gets on a coach and makes his way to Floyd's cave.
De az közben azt hogy tudni kell, hogy amúgy tök light-hearted a videó, azt néztem is, hogy ilyen félváról veszi az egészet, de azért képzeld már azt, hogy 40 óráig ott vagy élve, eltemetve, és meg nem tudsz mozogni, és mindened fáj, és sötétbe vagy. Tehát az azt jelenti, hogy elalszol, és álmodsz valamiről, és felkelsz egy koporsóban. Tehát ilyen rémálomba gyakorlatilag. Szerintem már egy idő után nem fogod tudni megkülönböztetni a valóságot az államtól. Nagyon szar lehet.
Struts up to the scene. Dozens of men are standing around outside. He ignores them all and
Se kaja, se pia, hova pisilsz, hova kakész, a gatyádba valószínűleg. Tehát ott gondolom 3 nap után már összeszarod magad kb. Ami tök jó, mert közben el vagy ugye temetve. Másik meg, hogy szerintem az lett volna az első itt ebben a helyzetben, hogy legalább valahogy megpróbálnak neki vinni valami kaját egy csövön keresztül, esetleg vizet, vagy valamit.
marches right into the cavern, still wearing his city clothes. He makes his way in, down the chute, through the narrowing passages, down on his hands and knees towards the turnaround room. And when he arrives, he does not hesitate. He squeezes into the hole, scrambles his way through to the ledge on the other side. He sees Floyd below and slides down to meet him.
Floyd!
Sup?
Right, probably wasn't that casual.
Oh, thank God you're here.
Homer took a moment to shine his light around the area and assess the situation. It was not good. This rock formation is going to prove almost impossible to work around. Alright, so let's have a look. Floyd is here. The rock is here, pinning his ankle. He's surrounded by rubble, and there's a pocket of gravel above him ready to fall. However, because this opening is so small, there are only two viable ways of reaching that gravel. Option one, the most obvious, feet first. But if you do this, you have to kind of squat, and your own torso...
Már a zenére visszatérve, mert addig fog idegesíteni, még nem találom ki. A farkasos lesz a második része. Wolf Among Us, azaz. Köszi.
So, obstructs access to the rubble. Otherwise, option 2, come down headfirst. That will give you better access, but you're trying to move hundreds of pounds of gravel upside down. Worse yet, there's barely an inch around Collins on either side, so good luck getting your arm down near Floyd's ankle to actually free him from the wedged rock. Homer calls back to the less daring rescuers standing behind him.
Quickly, some food and drink.
They send it through. He hand feeds his brother a pint of coffee and a total of 9 sausage sandwiches.
Feeling better?
Much better.
Then, Homer went to task. He began removing rocks and gravel, tiny scoop at a time, with the help of an old syrup can.
Jesus fucking Christ.
For the next 8 hours he toiled.
Már 47. órája, hát az
Once
már...
enough was cleared, using a crowbar to scoop behind his brother, scraping away sharp protrusions as he went. It was slow progress. Virtually futile. As soon as he removed one rock or scoop of gravel, another would tumble from above and land in the new absence. And it was exhausting work. By sunrise, Homer's arms and back were knackered. His lungs burned. He was losing hope. Homer emerged hours later, shivering violently, skin bruised from his fingertips, but the cave barely yielded at all. However, something new. By the time Homer reached outside, he was greeted by a sea of approximately 100 men and women standing around, drinking, squabbling, and talking big game about how they too were going to save Floyd.
Megjöttek a magyarok, igen. Megjöttek, én ott lennék. Én percot kiszedném a gyereket, elkezdtek a húztat, és hát nekem mennem kéne. Amúgy is add nekem a hátam, amúgy is. Tehát megjöttek a shit-talkerek, tényleg.
To help people gawk from afar. Now, Homer recuperated at a small tent near the cave's mouth. Strangers immediately crowded around him to ask innocent but, frankly, frustrating questions, and offer unsolicited, obvious advice, as well as wildly impractical solutions. He should try untying his shoes, said one. No, we should send him down with a contortionist who's got a mallet and a chisel. We should jerk him off, right, guys? All right, I made that third guy up. But you get the
Talán ez nem
idea.
történt,
And they
mondjuk meg.
started to argue with each other about their plans.
Mert ugye nehéz lenne
Hey,
hozzáférni.
how about using dynamite? One clique formed, insisting that it was a great idea. And another saying, no, the explosion will kill him, and the weight of the new rocks will surely crush him. They fought for a while until they started arguing about gas torches, which will cook him or asphyxiate him, or the gas will poison him. But by far the most common suggestion, of course, was amputation. Never mind that the foot itself was unreachable, and never mind what the blood loss and shock would do to Floyd's weakened body, and never minding even more that Floyd was strongly reluctant to the idea.
Whatever you do, don't cut my foot off.
All of the squad.
Egyébként mekkora egy hülye ötlet, mert nem is férsz hozzá, tehát nem is tudod elmondani sehogy amputálni a lábát. Ráadásul ott fekszik már a csávó, érted, egy koporsóban 50 órája lassan, tehát gyakorlatilag mire kihúzott, beledöglik már csak a gyengeségbe is. És ezt vágom, hogy ez simán ez ment egész nap, teljesen biztos vagyok benne, hogy mindenki kurva okos volt. Egész nap mindenki fejben már 3-szor megmentette a csávót, azt amikor elérkeztek a 20 centis Spacehez, akkor hát figyelj, most jó van már.
One of them would just brave the damn cave and continue shoveling away the gravel. The formula was always the same. Brave heroes go in with food and supplies, then reach the turnaround room and immediately lose their nerve, then dump the food just outside the hole, and then return back outside and go, oh, absolutely. No, he says, thanks for the food. Thank you so much. Yum, yum. No one would go through that squeeze. Dozens more men would try. All of them would fail.
Oh, basz meg!
February 2nd, 9 a.m. So far, Homer has been the only person to have reached Floyd. And that would continue to be true until here we are at the Louisville Courier. There's a spirited young newshawk named William Miller. He's talking to his boss, and he's trying to convince him that it's a great idea for him to cover the story of the man trapped in the cave.
Listen up, boss. I'm hearing talk of a man in a cave. He's stuck down there, and I want to get down there too. Get to the nitty-gritty, you hear?
This is an opportunity for some good PR, Miller. I'm in. But I want us to sponsor that rescue. Picture this. Man saved from cave by Louisville Courier, the finest newspaper in the state. That'll drum up plenty of business.
24-carat idea, boss. I'll make it happen. I'll get down there toot sweet.
So off Miller goes to Floyd's cave. Back over at the cave, Homer is sitting outside trying to recuperate. As Miller wanders up, he glares at the man in his city clothes and answers every question with either a grunt or a one-word answer.
Yeah. Sure.
Finally, he gestures to Sand Cave.
Listen, you want more information? The hole's right behind me. Why don't you go take a look yourself?
Now, Miller is only 21, but he is a slender and determined man. He takes on the challenge. So he removes his suit, drapes himself in coveralls, and grabs a lamp. Miller slowly enters the cave. He finds himself stepping in puddles and having to correct his balance against the ever-softening walls. These were accumulating problems thanks to the gawkers outside who had lit campfires all around the entrance. That caused snowmelt, and the stable environment of the cave started to shift. But Miller makes it further than most. And all that's left is that final squeeze, and he's there. He stops. He takes a moment and decides to call out to Floyd.
Floyd!
Hearing there is someone on the other side, he feels ashamed not to try. So he closes his eyes and moves forward. His slender...
Érted? Senki nem ment odáig be. Eddig egy ember ment odáig be. A csávó csak simán azért, hogy ne legyen kínos, simán átpréseli magát ezen a 20 centis lyukon. Tehát, hogy azért csávó megjött a gigacsed, érted?
Cuts into his elbows and tugs at his clothes. He gets snagged. He's spluttering through the pools of muddy water. He stops, collects himself, and pushes on. He can barely inhale. If he gets stuck in here, he can only hope that someone else can come in from behind and pull him out by the legs. But eventually, he makes it through. Fantastic. He's now standing on the edge of a 10-foot pit, and he clumsily bumbles his way down. He sat right next to Floyd, ready to interview him. But Floyd didn't really answer any...
Interjúra készen, a csávó az, aki 60 órája el van temetve, hát it's not the time. Akkor mit tudsz mondani, hogy így hallod, majd máskor. Igazán origós, de nem. Tehát így mit tudsz mondani, hogy így, dude, come on, dude, like, it's just not the time. Tehát szia uram, mi a helyz? Tehát érted? Tehát, de tényleg ez a csávó haldoklik, hát hagyd már végén. Végül az egyetlen ember, aki tud vele beszélni, érted, ott fekszik a sötétbe. Nem, hogy egy lámpást odavinnének neki, érted?
He was incoherent. At the moment, he is sitting in a pool of water that is 12 degrees, slowly sapping his body temperature. He is dying from exposure. The cold is diminishing Floyd's mental faculties, and he can barely make sentences. So Miller took a few mental notes, and he left. He worked his way back...
A nagy help! Megjött a nagy help! Na szevasz, Floyd! Majd jövök.
Through the squeeze, past the turnaround room, and out into the daylight. He is covered in mud and scratches and numb head to toe. And when Homer saw, his hope reignited. Someone else had made it to Floyd.
You and me. Together, we can get Floyd out of there.
That's a voice acting.
If Miller hadn't gone to that cave, there's a good chance that Floyd's story would have remained an obscure footnote in the back pages. But the interviews and first-person accounts gave the audience a glimpse of something real. Fear, hope, desperation, the full range. And so from Los Angeles to New York, Floyd's story was picked up everywhere and described the Kentucky man's plight in sensational detail. It was also the era when radio became a regular feature for
Ez mind amikor bejött a YouTube és elkezdett minden csak randomra terjedni.
New, hourly updates, letting people get engrossed into the story. So, mostly thanks to Miller, the story of Floyd over the next week would grow and grow, seemingly frothing over into every aspect of American life. The press at large would be clamoring over each other for every little extra scrap of detail they could get about
Is the Outer Wilds
and everybody wanted to know, will this man make it?
Csodol, de eddig életben maradt egyébként.
Someone new enters the scene. Lieutenant Robert.
Kérnék, nagyon szépen köszi.
Mi lesz a szabbabánk neve, Alex?
Floyd. Na kb. Ideig láttam egyébként, úgyhogy erre már nem is nagyon emlékszem, úgyhogy innentől nekem is csak új lesz. A kurva életben. Ilyen hosszú a videó, de nagyon remélem, szurkolok Floydnak, hogy túlélje. Szerintem túl fog élni, mert különben nem lenne ebből ekkora sztori, nem tudom. Ne találjuk ki a végét előre.
33-year-old Louisville firefighter. Like Miller, he was able to navigate the passages of the cave and brave the squeeze. Scratched up pretty good and drenched in cold, muddy water, he managed to get through. He grabbed the rope and confidently lowered himself to Floyd's position. It was not an optimistic sight. Floyd's condition was deteriorating.
Well, we've got a heck of a problem here, but I think we can get out with a rope.
Floyd nods in approval.
Go on.
We might just pull your bloody leg off.
Just pull my leg off then. Get me out of here.
Burton returned to the surface and faced the crowd. He announced,
"We will attempt a rope pull."
The crowd murmured. It was dangerous. It would certainly break his foot and could altogether pull it off. If there are jagged rocks, you'll fillet the poor man. Amongst the crowd, a doctor stepped forward. A rope pull could stretch his internal organs and cause them to rupture. You'll kill him. But Floyd is dying of exposure down there.
Akartam mondani, hogy a probléma az, hogy érted, hogy nem sok esélyünk van, mert mi van, ha belehal? Hát, hogyha ott hagyjuk is belehal, így aztán jó, csak mondjuk azért az elég, azt azért nem szenvednéd végig, nem? elég morbid.
Burden put caution to the side.
The time for strategy is over. Now we try brute force.
Ja igen, bárki chatben ne spoilerezzen nyilván, mert akkor az úgy nem olyan fun. Én sem tudom a végét, meg a chatelők se tudja, mondjuk szerencsére nem láttam a spoilert, de tényleg, de please, normálisan gyerekek, jó? Nyolcvanadik órája, bazzek, hogy ezt, hogy... The fuck? Elnézi. Jaj, csak Miskolcra ne! Akkor inkább élve eltemetve. What the fuck?
Floyd! Floyd! We're here. We're gonna get you out of here.
After 79 hours in the cold water, he is delirious, fading in and out of consciousness. Homer gave his brother some coffee and fed him a couple of ham sandwiches. That warms him up and gives him a bit more energy, and he comes back to lucidity.
Oh, much better.
I'm gonna put the special harness around you. Burton and Miller, they're here too. We got 3 more boys right up.
Lehet, hogy valamit elég kéne rakni, hogy kifele húzza, ne felfele, nem?
Floyd was frightened.
Amúgy.
I'm not gonna lie, it's gonna hurt.
He gave his brother some whiskey and a strong sedative to calm his nerves, and also to help him withstand the shock in case his foot is destroyed. Floyd took the opportunity to appreciate being surrounded by friends and family.
Go on, do it.
All right, strap him up.
De most attól függetlenül milyen szar a voice acting, meg minden ilyen kicsit el van hülyéskedő, ez azért milyen traumatik, ahogy így felkészülsz, hogy na most valószínűleg megdög lesz, vagy a lábadnak lesz annyi, és kurvára fog fájni, ugye, mert el vagy temetve. Azt sem tudod már, hogy hol vagy, mert itt ázol bazzeg a 10 fokban már napok óta. Nem tudom, egyébként valamit elég kéne rakni, mert különben ha felfele húzza, csak neki préseli a plafonnak, nem? Nem tudom.
The harness around Colin's chest.
Várjuk meg, mi történik.
Ready?
Above, Miller is crouched at the top of the pit.
Ready?
Burden clenches the cord from further up the cave.
3,
The rope goes taut.
2,
Do it.
1.
Oh!
Instinctively, Floyd gasps. The force of 6 men pulled against the clutches of the cave. Floyd began to scream. His body was being pulled up from the rubble. The gravel was beginning to shift. Burden clenched his teeth.
Oh, harder!
Floyd screamed harder as well. Now, Floyd was trapped in a supine position, but the direction of the rope caused an upwards force that wrenched him vertically. His torso was being compressed and bent against the ceiling of the trap. It would kill him. Floyd's screaming intensified, and through gasps was begging them to stop. The screams filled the echoing cave, but it did not stop. The agony continued, on and on, with no progress.
Enough! Enough! You guys are killing him!
Homer pulled in the opposite direction to give his brother some reprieve. Somehow, Homer mustered the strength to altogether wrench the cord from the other men's hands. The rope went slack. Homer, Floyd, and the rope lay limp on the cave floor, panting and exhausted. No progress had been made.
Ez amúgy borzasztó lehet, tehát,
The cave would not let this man go.
Jesus fucking Christ, dude.
The futility of the situation sank in, and all they could do was leave for now and reassess. Everybody was shaken by it.
Hogy így a ballag nem engedte. Nem. A sacrifice itt volt időben.
Burden fainted as he crawled towards the exit. Most of the other men had to be carried away. Outside, the crowd had grown to 200. They buzzed and asked useless questions, and Homer walked dejectedly past them. He sat by thinking what he could do. The cause seemed hopeless.
Homer?
Then, someone showed up.
Már is nézzük ki showed, csak csörög a telefonom egy pillanat. Másodperc. Na, itt vagyok, bocsi. Nézzük.
Who could turn things around. He looked up to see a childhood friend of both his and Floyd's, Johnny Gerald. Gerald knew more about cave rescues than most. In fact, just that summer prior, he had helped untangle Floyd from a different snag. He was just the man for the job.
All right, let me go see him. Well, look who it is.
Floyd perked up immediately, thrilled to see Gerald.
All right, let's see
Gerald jumped down. For the next 3 hours, Gerald went back to the original plan of prying away rocks. His stamina was good, and progress was surprisingly good as well. For 7 more hours, he continued. Just moving stone. New one would fall in its place, and he'd move that one too. By midnight, he had enough room to shift position and clear some of the gravel that was at each side of Floyd's body. Gerald would spend several more hours scooping. And it worked. For the first time, Floyd's torso was now available. His
Floyd!
His upper thigh.
For the first
time in over 90 hours, Floyd was able to wiggle his arms, his hips, and even that trapped right leg, though it was very painful to do. In that one session, Gerald managed to move a half-ton of rock, but there was still a lot more to go. And that rock by his foot was still holding him in place. By 2 a.m., Gerald was spent. He needed rest, and he was ready to head back outside.
Floyd, tomorrow, you're gonna be a free man.
Now here you might think that things will become straightforward. They did not. Now that space had been cleared, Burden...
96 óra. Jesus fucking Christ. De és ott van érted, bazzeg, és egyszerűen nem.
Became convinced that if he could get down that passage again, he could free Floyd with another rope pull, fate deciding with both feet or just one. But when Burden tried to enter the cave again, he was sternly rebuffed by the locals. They were playing gatekeeper. They had been specifically instructed to not let anyone in, and they were especially opposed to Burden making another rope pull after word spread about the disaster of the first attempt. He tried to reason with them.
Let me try the rope pull again. It'll work this time.
They wouldn't let up. Instead, they shouted obscenities and shoved him in the other direction.
The fuck?
Meanwhile, Gerald and Homer are incapacitated with exhaustion.
Tök jó, nem, hogy beengedtek oda így mindenkit keménykedni, meg ordibálni, meg okoskodni. Aztán 3-4 emberen kívül senki nem tudott odáig eljutni. Tök jó, mindenkit így odaengedtek hisztizni, bazd meg. Hihetetlen.
And Miller was busy filing some paperwork for the Louisville Courier.
Ezek a miskolciak.
Or the authority to take it.
Jöttek a miskolciak segíteni, elállták az utat, elkezdtek lögdösödni, meg hisztiztek és keménykedtek non-stop.
Action. So Floyd spent all of that morning alone.
Hello? Is anyone there? Help? Hey? Anyone out there?
Word spread about Floyd. Miller's reporting had been picked up by the AP Newswire, and they distributed it amongst their hundreds of partnered newspapers. For Miller, it would be the biggest moment of his career. But he didn't stop to pay it mind. He spent the day hatching a rescue plan. Miller descended into the cave and set to work.
Hát mert Miller most már személyesen meg érzelmileg kötődött Floydhoz, mert hogy... Érted? A 4 ember között volt, aki tudott vele beszélni, miközben haldoklik.
Had strung light bulbs all through the cavern, leading all the way down to Floyd. Very handy. A bulb was also put around Floyd's neck to keep him warm and make sure that he was never again left in the dark. Miller popped down to
Csak 100 óráig kellett ezt várni.
Ah, Floyd! Fancy seeing you here, buddy.
Reusing that syrup tin, he started offloading gravel into buckets. Those buckets were then passed up and down the cavern. And so it went on for the next 2 hours. Miller stopped for a break. He took some bread, milk, and whiskey, and sharing it with Floyd, they started to get to talking. Floyd had been in that cave for over 100 hours. And seeing everyone working together, Floyd was overcome with a sense of hope and relief. And so he began spilling his heart out to Miller. Here is what he is quoted in the newspaper.
I believed I would go to heaven. I can feel that I'm to be taken out alive and with both my feet. I kept thinking, what would happen if the rock above me would fall? It caused me to shudder. I kept thinking to drive my mind to something else, but it wasn't much use. I couldn't do much to help those who came to help me, but I knew that a lot of people were willing to do all in their power. It gave me courage. Tuesday morning I thought to myself, 4 days down here, and no nearer freedom than I was on the first day. How will it end? Will I get out? Couldn't think of it.
Remélem.
I have faced death before. It doesn't frighten me, but it is so long. Tell them I am not going to give up. Tell them I'm going to fight and be patient and never forget them.
Bazd meg. 100 óráig lent lenni egy koporsóba, bazd meg, a sötétbe, hát bele, ez simán megőrülnél. Tehát ott már nyilván ott már magad alá húgyozol, meg ilyesmi, az már mondjuk nem érdekel senkit, csak élt túl, ugye? Bazd meg. Nagyon remélem, hogy Floydnak sikerül kijutni onnan. Bár ha kijut, se lesz sose ugyanolyan. Mert ez a fajta PTSD azért ez üt.
Meanwhile, Floyd's story kept growing. Pedestrians would gather around corner store windows to read the latest bulletins. The press began using giant typefaces, commonly only reserved for declarations of war. Churches in all of the nearby counties were holding services for Floyd. Theaters even interrupted their shows to update the audience. Now, at the time, President Coolidge was in charge, and his Secretary of Commerce was a geologist, Herbert Hoover. Now, Mr. Hoover followed the story very closely, and so it was likely that the president did too. Even Congress paused session to ask about the latest news from Sand Cave. By the end, the Floyd Collins incident would explode into the third largest non-political story between World War I and World War II.
A Friendly Gaming, nagyon szeretlek, ja nem, azt Fauspot írta. Nagyon szeretlek Friendly Gaming, nehogy elszomorodj. Barganya, nagyon szépen köszönöm a subábos kribolást. Te vagy a legcukibb.
All of this excitement brought an inundation of people to Cave City. Old population, 690. Yawn. New population, 10,000. Hotels ran out of food. Residents turned their homes into makeshift hotels, charging sizable premiums to let people nap in their bathtubs. The banks quickly ran out of on-hand cash, and 4,500 automobiles impatiently sat backed up for 2 miles from 20 different states to drive onto the Collins farm and turn their pristine green pastures into swampy parking lots. Deep below all those tourists, there's Miller, trying to free Floyd.
Mondjuk azért kurva mélyen vannak. Én azt nem értem, hogy azt a 20, ami megakadályoz ugye szinte mindenkit, hogy oda tudjon menni, az a 20 centis szar, azt miért nem kezdték el kivésni? Most tudom, hogy ugyanazt csinálom, mint a menő csávok, akik oda mentek okoskodni, majd visszafordultak és hazamentek, de hogy alapból, hogyha elkezdték volna már napokkal ezelőtt, már szerintem nagyjából kinyitották volna, tehát rengeteg ember van. Csak hát nyilván mindenki csak verte a faszt.
Alright, a little bit of setup. Floyd, Miller, some remaining rubble, rock. For anyone to lift the rock by hand would be impossible because Floyd's body obstructs the hole. Miller grabs a crowbar and shoves it through the gap. Now he's going to lever it off Floyd's foot. Cool. The crowbar is now wedged against the rock. Next, he takes a jack. He positions it on top of the crowbar so that it will be forced against the ceiling. However, problem. That jack is too big. It doesn't fit. Miller yells up the tunnel for a smaller one, but this took some time. And when it arrived, too small, won't reach the ceiling. But instead of sending for another one, Miller takes 2 blocks of wood and bolsters them underneath the crowbar. Right, so the crowbar now sits higher, it fulcrums against the block, and the jack is sitting on top. All Miller has to do is expand the jack, which he will do using this spanner, holding it at the very tips of his fingers. Sounds easy. It's not. But that's the plan. Let's get him out of there. He turned the wrench. The jack expanded, and the crowbar took strain. The whole thing slid apart with a pang. Floyd wasn't hurt, but Miller was contorting and exerting his whole body from back to fingertip. They tried again. Same result. Miller tried a new angle. Maybe this time. The jack pressed. The tension increased. And this time, the rock moved. It fucking moved. With each turn, the stone shifted a little more. Miller's hands shook with adrenaline, his face and body dripping with sweat. Pang. One of the blocks slipped, and the wooden tower went sideways.
Szóval nagyon szépen köszönöm a Miskolcnak ajándékozott szavot, nagyon cuki vagy.
The rock painfully slammed back down on Colin's foot.
You'll get it next time, Miller. Try again.
Miller did. Again. And again. Adding blocks, taking them away, new crowbar position, changed the jack position, every angle, all while Floyd was there, cheering him on.
Yay.
For the next 4 hours he tried. No progress. Miller was exhausted. He couldn't do this on his own, but he was the only one slim enough to get in through the gap. The group decided to concede for now and return to the surface. They would take just a small break, but it looked to everyone like there was a clear way to get this man out. So Miller and Burden crawled back through the mud and the wines of the cave. As they made their way through, the cave was visibly sagging. The ceiling seemed lower. Parts were harder to navigate than before, especially now with their bruised and purple hands. But they made it outside to the fresh, early morning air. And here is where they're greeted with a new sight. Dozens of soldiers. The National Guard had arrived. In addition to the National Guard, a new figure was joining the story, Henry Carmichael. Now, Carmichael was the general superintendent of the Kentucky Rock Asphalt Company. He had been on site since Tuesday, and he was appalled at how primitive the rescue attempts had been. Shortly after Miller and co. had exited,
Mr. Okos,
Carmichael sent 2 men into Sand
112.
Cave
óra
to
után.
assess the structure's stability. They soon came back with a report. It was not good. Near the final squeeze, large cracks had formed. The ceiling was beginning to droop. Alright, so the following is a recounting of events from one of Carmichael's men, Casey Jones. Casey and another worker spent about an hour in the cave, surveying its condition, looking at the boards, the ceiling, the stability of the walls. He continued deeper towards Floyd. He was fighting against his nerves. The shifting of the rock pinged his every instinct to flee. But he heard Collins moaning ahead, so he pushed himself on. He managed to make it through the squeeze and he arrived at the 10-foot pit. Seeing Floyd trapped, he tried to ignore the pebbles that were tumbling behind him.
Please, come down.
I can't right now, Floyd, but I will when I get back.
Behind Casey, his partner is
Hogy a szar lehet? Végre meglátsz valakit, mennem kell.
Below Casey, Collins is pleading for help.
Please, I'm so thirsty.
Okay.
Casey slid headfirst into the pit and hastily ladled Floyd some coffee. But Floyd rejected it.
No.
Rumbling intensified from above. And in that moment, Casey realized that this was not a plea for sustenance. Floyd knew that a cave-in was inevitable. Scared and approaching his 5th day trapped, he was completely at his wit's end. He knew he was about to be trapped in that cave. And he didn't want to be trapped alone.
Érthető, de I have to go.
Please, don't leave.
Casey looked into Colin's eyes, set the coffee down, and pulled himself out of the pit. He wiggled underneath the sagging ceiling and crawled towards the turnaround room as fast as his limbs could scramble against the cave walls. He looked back to see the passage closing like a maw. Reflections from the bulb shining around Floyd's neck were no longer visible. Instead, just sobs could be heard, muffled from behind the rocks. Miller and Burden awoke in the late morning, confident that today would be the day that they saved Floyd.
Hát... ezek után... Jézus Mária, hát ha még életben van.
They had some new equipment too. Some wire to wrap around the wooden blocks to prevent them from slipping. And they changed their mind about that acetylene torch. They'll use it to burn away 2 rocks that had previously blocked their way. But when Miller got to the turnaround room, all of that optimism left him. The entrance to the squeeze was now just a pile of debris. Miller froze, staring at it for a long while. Then he sighed and did the only thing he could think, attempt to move some of the stones. But each adjustment led to more rocks just tumbling down and landing in that space. He persisted until... crash. A large chunk of clay landed onto his feet. Recognizing the danger, Miller returned to the surface. 15 minutes later, he emerged from the cave with a bloodied-up nose and bruises down his back and shoulders. Burden caught sight and races over to him. Miller just says, "For God's sake, just don't let Homer or anyone else back in there." Now, he didn't actually need to worry about Homer going back in there because he was sidelined with illness. But he did, however, need to worry about Gerald, because he was furious. Gerald had warned everyone that putting dozens of people in Sand Cave would cause a collapse. It certainly did. The rest of that day would be wasted, as men threw blame around and screamed at each other about how to handle the cave-in. And Floyd spent the rest of that day alone. The surveyors continued checking the cave throughout the day. By the evening, Carmichael had ordered everyone to an assembly. Gerald took the floor. He was going to try one last daring rescue. He boldly announced his plan and an ultimatum.
Listen up. There's death down there. The walls and ceilings are crumbling. Unless you're determined to take the biggest chance you ever took in your life, tell me now and stay outside.
Next, they told all the Gawkers to get the fuck out of the cave, clear off. And over the next 8 hours, Gerald would enter and leave Sand Cave at least 5 times, chipping away at that pile of debris. In the woods, men sawed trees and chopped logs to shore up the cave walls. Underground, the crew reinforced cracks and wobbling boulders with fresh strips of wood. Gerald assessed that about 4 barrels of rocks would need to be moved, and piece by piece, they made that happen. Steadily, they managed to move enough rock to allow Gerald to get within earshot of Floyd.
Hey! Hello? I need food.
Bad news! We can't reach you, but hold on, we're coming!
Stone by stone, they continued. After a few hours, the light of the boulder around Floyd's neck was peeking through. A couple more hours, enough room for Gerald to squeeze through.
Okay, that's enough. Floyd, I'm going for now, but when I get back, I'm gonna get you out of there.
Exhausted but still determined,
Gerald
crawled back up the cave and marched to the men huddling outside.
Gather the equipment, and in an hour's time, it's gonna be me and Floyd coming out of that cave.
Jesus, hogy a picsán
Gerald
maradt
entered
az
Sand
életben
Cave
egy
for his
ideig?
final time. The walls had been reinforced, but mud and water was accumulating everywhere. He waded through it and pressed on past the danger of the sagging ceiling. With determination on his face and a grease gun clutched in his right hand, he scrambled towards Floyd. But before the final squeeze, he stopped. It was all gone. The cave ceiling had crumbled once again. Gerald stared motionlessly at the pile. Then he began to yell.
Floyd!
A rock disconnected from the ceiling and tumbled onto Gerald's head. Luckily, just a small one. He rubbed his scalp and called out again.
Floyd!
This time, a moan. It rumbled from the other side. Fearing that his friend was slipping out of consciousness, Gerald willed himself against the cave, launching the debris behind him with force. He ignored the pain from being struck on the head and clawed at the stone pile. He carried on this way for several minutes, until a sharp, heavy rock dropped from the ceiling and landed squarely on his back. No more than 15 minutes later, Gerald returned to the surface.
Egyrészt ez a csávó egy giga Chad, másrészt meg, tehát hogyha a Cave úgy dönt, hogy nekik Floyd kell, akkor neki Floyd kell, tehát hogy úgy érzem, hogy ez már itt már nem sok esélyünk van.
Defeated. Only after the cave-ins did they start to think about all of the things that they could have done.
Why didn't we rig a portable telephone line? That would have been incredibly simple here in 1925. Yeah, why have we been running in and out to deliver updates?
Why didn't we give him an AM radio? He could have had something to listen to and receive messages of support from the public.
Wait, why don't we rig up a tarpaulin so we could lift his torso up so he wouldn't be slowly dying of exposure? Oh god, why didn't we run a feeding tube? That's also
Ezt még én is mondtam, hogy utólag meg mindenki kurva okos lett, de hogy így, amúgy tényleg, hát miből tartott volna egy telefont levinni, vagy egy rádiót, vagy egy csövet, amin tudsz neki vizet nyomatni mondjuk, vagy meleg vizet, hogy ne fagyjon meg.
25.
All too late. Now what? The one route to get to Floyd is closed forever. That meant 2 options. Number 1, capitulation. Surrender him to the cave. Or number 2, dig down from directly above Floyd. Now the prospect of digging from above seems almost fanciful. At least it did in the beginning. But luckily, they had some help. Owing to Miller's reporting, Floyd had become practically the most famous person in the country. The rescue had become a high priority for the governor of Kentucky.
Barlangba rádió? Hát kábellel, persze. Hát csak egy drót kell hozzá, tehát az bármilyen kopper dróttal lehet rádiódást fogni. Hát, hogy érted, hogy ott legyen neki valami, ott üljön be ezek a kusba órákig egy koporsóba, sötét, Jézus Mária.
Lieutenant General Denhart enters the scene. He's been updated on the situation, and following shortly behind him is a small army of miners and engineers.
Megjött a Giga-Chat csapat.
To the despondent crowd. Gentlemen, I am here on behalf of the governor. The purse strings of Kentucky are open. Take this blank check and bring that man out alive. Floyd
csak nem sikerülni fog.
Could not have imagined the scale of the operation that was going on 55 feet above him.
Mondjuk kicsit megkésve, ugye?
Control of Colin's rescue. Denhart gave Henry Carmichael the lead to dig, and Carmichael raced to get to work. He enlisted his employees, his fleet of expensive high-tech machinery. Professional groups were brought in from all across the state. Local townspeople were mostly excluded, and for the first time since Collins had been trapped, work was now about to go ahead in a systematic manner.
Na még pénz, abban a pillanatban mindenki elkezdett dolgozni, de ugye? Tehát addig mindenki csak ott állt, és de ezt kellett volna csinálni, azt kellett volna csinálni. Amit megjött a csekk, megjött a Giga-Chat csapat.
Everyone knew the plan. Everyone had something to do, and everyone was working fast.
Mondjuk már
but just as hopes were rising, they were once again dashed against the rocks. They had all of this state-of-the-art machinery shipped in and assembled by the engineers and rearing to go, and it was all worthless. See, the problem is, the cave drew air into it. These diesel-powered engines pumped out enormous volumes of choking exhaust. Within a day's operation, the cave would be filled with carbon monoxide, and Floyd would be dead from asphyxiation. Just as quickly as solutions would arise, the cave would parry them away. It refused to let this man go. So engineers and miners had wasted hours assembling everything, only to realize that they had to pack it all up and cart it away. Because the digging of a 55-foot shaft would be done with picks and shovels.
Csak tippelek, Floyd szerintem már viszontlátásra van. Gondolj már bele, nem tudják elérni már, mit tudom én, 30. órája. Ott van a hidegben, ott fekszik, alapból is már ott feküdt érted napok óta.
Carmichael didn't know much about caves,
Barlang
but he knew a
easy.
lot about quarrying. And he estimated that his team of 75 volunteers could dig and dredge at a rate of 2 feet per hour.
Hát az nem sok.
If they worked around the clock, they would be digging directly into the spot where Floyd lays within 30 hours. Now, was it possible that Floyd could survive for another 30 hours? Absolutely. Let's go. The first
The fuck do I
was
know?
moved, and at first, it was easy work. Just dirt and clay. Carmichael understood well that this was a race against time, so he watched the men closely, and if they seemed to be slowing down, even a little, they would be yanked out, and immediately a new worker subbed in. Nonetheless, the pace slowed. By 10 feet, the shaft narrowed greatly, which meant that only 2 men could work at a time. At 15 feet, they hit boulders. Pickaxes went in, and a system of pulleys and buckets had to be used to cart the rock out. Tracks were even laid to ferry the refuse to a dump site.
Holott már kurvára late szerintem, tehát hogy ezt már napokkal ezelőtt el kellett volna kezdeni. Nyilván de régen nem volt ennyire gyors a hírközlés, tehát nem be kellett ehhez robbanni, hogy ebből ekkora dolog legyen, de azért el tudod képzelni azt a fajta összetartást, meg azt a közös erőt, ami kellett ahhoz, hogy hogy ilyen kurva gyorsan kezdjenek el dolgozni lefele. Tehát itt mindenki szerintem pánik helyzetben volt, kb. Annyira gyorsan nyomatták.
Time passed. Hours passed. Night went to day. The day was hot. This was yet another problem, because it's early February, there's tons of ice still in the ground, and its exposure to the fresh midday sun meant that the walls of the shaft were softening and the ground becoming sodden. The pace of digging slowed. It was now only half a foot per hour. Most anyone could do was watch helplessly on the sidelines and pray. Interestingly, though, there were a lot of people on the sidelines. Floyd wouldn't have believed that the space above him had a literal carnival in his honor. Vendors showed up to sell hamburgers, hot dogs, and souvenirs. Families sprawled out over blankets to listen to hymns from local church groups. The local...
Nagyon szépen köszi, generál rohanik, hallod? Ennek itt volt az ideje, nem? A csávó ott van, haldoklik, segítség kéne. Akkor most búcsút fogunk nyitni. Gyere, a hajlított sevű légpuskás lövöldözés csak 250 forint per menet. Ennek in his honor, érted? Meg se halt még. Hát ne tedd, bazd meg, állj de gáz. De nem, de ez milyen disrespectful, mert ott haldoklik a csávó, nyugodj már le.
Paul Mountebank sold moonshine and miracle cures. There was even a bloody juggler. And old man Lee was there, walking around, shaking his jar, and soliciting donations. But where were Homer and Burden and Miller during all of this? Okay, let's back up a bit. People did not properly understand exactly how Floyd was trapped, and the news didn't help much either. So the obvious question started to arise. Why hasn't he been rescued yet? Just clear some gravel or pull a rope. How is this so hard? Motive was attributed.
I heard they didn't even want to have him rescued at all. I heard that they're doing all of this for publicity.
And Lee's activity.
Na, elkezdődött a fake news tömeg. Nem is izé, hanem csak kellett a turizmus az a kisvárosnak. De milyen... Gondolom ez ment végig. Tök jó, hogy hagyták elterjedni, tehát tök mindegy hit voltak, többen is látták, beszéltek vele. Tök mindegy volt, túl jó hír volt, hogy utána nézzenek, gondolom.
I bet Floyd isn't even trapped in there.
These were all real rumors, and they got worse.
You know what? I've heard he comes out at night, and then he just goes back in the morning.
Other rumors included...
I heard that after Floyd went into the cave, someone murdered him.
Others said...
I think they're withholding food and water from him, so he dies.
This whole thing is a fraud.
As time went on, it was harder and harder to ignore the hoax claims.
Megjött a Twitter, Harvey!
People started...
De nem, hát mindenki látta, ott vannak, beszélnek vele, egy egész nationnek volt ebben probléma, hogy szedjük már ki a gyereket onnan, és ki hirtelen elkezdődött a Joe Rogan podcast Alex Jones-al, érted, és akkor egyből izé volt Frogs Gay. Hát hihetetlen. In his honor, Feri bácsi, tejfölös sajtos lángot 2000-é. Hát hihetetlen nagyon tisztelet, tudom. Még meg se halt.
To form righteous mobs, claiming the whole thing was a fraud, and they started to get nasty. In fact, two people even went to the telegraph office and pretended to be Floyd sending telegrams to his mother. Here's what it said. Quote, "Please contradict statements that I am buried alive in sand cave. Stop. Tell mother I am all right. Stop. Am coming home. Stop. Floyd Collins." Naturally,
Ezt egy olyan ember, aki el van temetve már majdnem 2 hete. El tudod képzelni, mekkora egy hülye fasznak kell ezt lenni, hogy egy olyan embert, aki el van temetve, és éppen ott haldoklik, még a nevébe írkáljál, hogy bazd meg.
The AP published these telegrams unquestioningly, and now word is out to the press that he isn't actually in the cave after all. That made the authorities look foolish, and it could not go on. So, a hasty court-martial was arranged, and Homer, Miller, and Gerald were summoned. They hold one session on Monday and another on Tuesday. Lee and everyone else is cleared of charges, a retraction is written, and things carry on. Generators rumbled. Pumps churned out water. Men continued working.
Nem hiszem, hogy még mindig életben van, egyszerűen nem tudom már inni. Ha ott fekszik a sötétben már hete.
They were only 25 feet down. The pace had slowed to 4 inches per hour. In their desperation, they resorted to dynamite. but this did little to the boulders. Despite all these bleak
circumstances,
people's spirits were high, because everyone was keen for their turn to dig, and because they had one more thing to latch onto. He is probably still alive. Now, how do they know that? Okay, so remember that light bulb around Floyd's neck? Well, it's powered by a simple copper wire. Bare copper wire is subject to very minute fluctuations in resistance.
Oh.
So, an engineer rigs up a radio amplifier to this wire to read the current and see those small fluctuations. There they were.
Oh.
About 20 per minute. The rate of steady breathing. As his chest expands and contracts, they can read.
Na, végre! Eddig vártunk, mindenki csak okoskodott, végre megjött egy igazi smart. Megjött végre egy igazi okostás, és akkor megoldotta ezt a problémát. Ez amúgy az genius. Soha nem jutott volna eszembe.
This device. And so, they kept going.
Jó, bazd meg! 300 órát töltesz ott lenn!
Was the original estimate.
Ilyen eltemetve, bazd meg. Összeszarva, összehúgyozva magad. Bazd meg. A sötétbe.
Then,
mondjuk ott van a lámpája, de hogy...
Rain that mixed with dirt to make mud. Much of which then froze to make ice.
Ez a csávó, ez egy igazi curse, érted?
The integrity of the shaft walls. Slowing down with every hour, they continued. Many more hours passed, and they were getting close. But it was now 15 days since Floyd was first stuck in that cave.
Jézus Mária!
Had mostly lost hope.
Én vicceltem a 2 héttel.
Newspapers was tempering down. Visitors began clearing out from Cave City. Many still held on to hope, but their final lifeline, that light bulb, had burnt out. And it wasn't possible to do any more readings on the radio amplifier without it. No one knew if Floyd was still alive. Another 51 hours would pass before finally they reached the 60-foot depth.
No. Floyd!
A chisel is handed down. At 1:30 p.m. on Monday, February 16th, Sand Cave would open once again. For 17 days, Floyd had been trapped underground, stuck in the same position. 4 days without heat or light. 12 without food or water. But maybe the dripping of the cave water...
12 víz nélkül? Az kurva élet, hogy azt nem élet túl. Víz nélkül nem élsz túl egy 4 napnál többet, az biztos. Mondjuk tiszta víz volt minden körülötte.
There are stories of people surviving harsher extremes. Rescuers frantically tugged at rocks to widen the hole. Everybody stood by, absolutely silent, peering into that hole. Ed flashed his light into the gap, then eased himself in. Brenner aimed his light around the room, and then, finally, at Floyd. The first thing he saw was a golden shimmer. It was not the light bulb. It was the reflection of Floyd's tooth. His mouth hung open. He was dead. Brenner was helped out of the cave and he delivered the news.
Mondjuk ezt ennyi idő után már várható volt.
Dead.
Bazd meg, azért képzeld már, hogy ott vagy egész, ott végig szenveded a gyerekkel a 2 hetet, és dead. Borzalmas.
Later state that Floyd succumbed to exposure, and that they had missed him by just 3 days. About the same time that the light bulb had gone out.
Passza.
But what would they do now with the body? The shaft walls were ready to fall inwards, and risking lives to remove a corpse was seen as just irresponsible. So the following morning, officials...
Bazd meg, meghalt Floyd. Képzeld már, mekkora minden így a semmibe. Az a rengeteg ember, a rengeteg gépek, a rengeteg beavatkozás, a rengeteg pénz, a rengeteg kutatás, az aggódás a családja szempontjából, mert akik oda mentek vele beszélni, még Miller is. Azt így grip.
Made a decision. Floyd would be entombed where he lay. The cave would keep its victim. Now, this did not sit well with the family, but what could they do? The next day, they planned the funeral. The town emptied of people, and the shaft with Floyd at the bottom was refilled with soil. But that's not quite the end of the story. But if you hung on for this long, keep holding on, because things are going to continue to get interesting. But first, let me do a...
Sose lesz vége. De basszeg, mi történhet még?
Wrap up where everyone is and all that stuff. Context.
Awesome.
The Collins family already had financial hardship. Locals saw Old Man Lee scouring the rescue site for glass bottles. But the owner of the lamb, B. Doyle, and supposed friend of Floyd, was wholly unsympathetic. He erected a sign on the highway which said, 200 yards away, the body of Floyd Collins is imprisoned in Sand Cave. Then he began charging tourists 50 cents apiece for the opportunity to gander into the hole. It's 100 years later, B's dead. Let's call it even. Also, remember those claims of Kentucky being...
Jó, tényleg egyenlő, mert már lehetett 100 és ő is meghalt. Ó, azért anyád. De tényleg.
Being an open purse? Well,
nem hagyják nyugodni ezt a Floydot.
They refused to pay many of the rescuers, and most of them went home without any compensation. Some of them did make some money out of the situation, though. They lucked into vaudeville gigs and roamed the country getting their first account. Miller, however, received an astonishing offer, a $50,000 contract from the Chautauqua lecture circuit, equivalent to $1 million in today's money. He declined. He continued to work at the Louisville Courier-Journal. The following year, his coverage of...
Nézi a szellemet az egész, azért nézi szelleme ezt az egész, really? De tényleg, tehát engedjétek már el. Nem szenvedett eleget?
Now the brother, Homer, he needed money and he agreed to do that vaudeville circuit. He stood on stage and regaled the audience about tales of his brother, their childhood, and the tragedy. But Homer made it known why he was up here on stage trying to get money. He had a mission.
I kept thinking of Floyd lying in the muck, where he had suffered beyond our power to imagine. I would never have peace of mind if he remained there.
He wanted the money to dig Floyd up and get him out of that cave. A couple of months later, he had it. All right, so back to Floyd. April 17th, 1925. 7 miners showed up to the scene. They began to dig. Within a week, they had arrived at Floyd. And this time, they approached from the other side of the rock formation. That way, they could remove the rock pinning Floyd's leg. They lifted him up from his tomb and laid him down on the fresh air above. April 26th, 1925. Floyd was set to rest in the family cemetery. A stalagmite had been set as a headstone to mark out his plot. And there he lay. No, that's not actually where it ends. Okay, this is where it gets weird. 2 years later, 1927. Times have been tough for the Collins.
De miért ment le oda? Hát, hogy megcsinálja, vagy kiássa a Csefkő barlangnak az utat. Azért ment le Szefanda. Ha ezt az elején kezdték volna, akkor igen, egyértelmű. Ha az elején neki kezdtek volna ásni lefele, vagy ilyesmi, akkor simán meg lett volna. Hát basszus, túlélt be az a 2 hetet a csávó lent abba a koporsóba. Mazas ebből én meg feltámadna, sose lesz vége. Nem tudom, mi jöhet még, érted? Ennél rosszabb halált nem tehát bazzak. Igazából itt ez, ha senki nem találta volna meg Floydot, szerintem egy 3-4 nap alatt simán belehal abba, hogy ugye megfagy, meg közben szomjan hal. Ehelyett, bazd meg, 2 hétig szenvedtették a csáv. Borzasztó, bazd meg.
So Floyd's dad sold Sand Cave to a dentist named Dr. Harry B. Thomas for $10,000. Now, Homer begged him not to, because at the time, the government was starting to buy up tons of land in the area and turn it into national parks. They had to pay at a very competitive rate. But Lee was becoming a bit old and senile by this point, and frankly, it's doubtful that he cared about Homer or Floyd or anyone else for that matter. It's 100 years later, he's dead now, let's call it even. So, the point is, in this land sale with Thomas, Lee agreed to a very odd clause. And that clause said, everything on that property belongs to Thomas. And should he wish, for example, to exhume a dead body and re-embalm it and put it on display in something tacky like a glass coffin inside a cave.
Oh,
maybe,
no.
then that would be his prerogative.
Let the man die, dude.
And Thomas did exactly that. Doyle made Floyd's corpse a tourist attraction. That's right.
Hol a pisztolyom? Hogy lőjem magam fejbe? A fasz! Hagyd már megdögleni, tehát állj már le! Hát nem hiszem el!
To Uganda, come and wonder at the incredible dead man who died in a cave. But to add insult to injury, it worked. Visitors returned to Sand Cave to gawk morbidly at Floyd. Within a few months, Thomas had turned Lee's failing farm into a successful business.
Yay!
Now, the rest of Colin's family is horrified. They try a number of times to get Floyd returned to them, including through the legal system. But somehow, incredibly, the judge ruled in Thomas's favor. And so, there he lay for the next 2 years. The cave was not done with Floyd.
Vissza a kévbe, érted? Végre kijött onnan, meghal, majd vissza a kévbe.
2 years later, it's midnight, outside Sand Cave. Footsteps can be heard rustling through the brush. Now, we don't know who these two men are, but we know why they are here. To rob a grave. They sneak inside and climb over the rocks. Reaching for his casket, they undo the latch and throw open the lid. There is his shriveled body. They throw him in a gunny sack, and they race off into the night. For 800 yards they carry dear Floyd, like a couple of sweaty Santas about to deliver a really terrible Christmas present. Panting, out of breath, knowing that they're going to get caught any minute, they reach the Kentucky Green River hillside. There's no time. With a 1, 2, 3, they launch his body towards the river, and Floyd goes sailing into the air, up, up, into the starlit beyond, and landing in a bush. Oh, God.
Nem szenvedett ez az ember eleget. Én még ilyet nem láttam, hogy valakit egyszer nem hagynak békén, még a halál után 2 évvel se.
The two men flee from the scene. Now, the next morning, Thomas notices that the body of Floyd is somewhat missing, and he contacts the authorities. The police come, they dust the casket for fingerprints, and bloodhounds are given Floyd's scent and let loose into the hillside. A few hours later, they manage to find him, a tangled up mess near the river, but this time with a leg missing, that same one that was trapped under the rock. So, despite his protest, it had been amputated. Neither the leg nor the culprits were ever found. And while it would be nice to think that this was some well-intentioned duo that did this out of the kindness of their hearts to free Floyd, it's much more likely that it was an act of vandalism because Floyd was simply too much of a hot tourist attraction. The following day, Floyd was cast back into the cave. Back into his box.
Nem lehet! Hagyjátok már még! Nem tud kijutni! Hallod? Már darabokra zuhant a hullája, akkor is visszakerül a kurva képbe. Soha többet, de ez egy SCP, érted? Soha többet nem fog tudni kijutni onnan.
Surrounded by a metal chain and locked with a padlock.
Nincs támadás! Kurva anyád van! Ott le van láncolva, innen
This
te
cave
ki nem
had
jössz,
spun
bazzeg,
fate
így fogsz
once
megrohadni.
again to make sure that its victim would never leave.
Hát ezt nem hiszem el.
And so, time passed. Floyd's body would continue to decay. The rot from his body would eventually rot the casket too, and every decade or so, it would need to be replaced. A few years later, he was no longer on display. But even then, he remained in that box for many more years. In 1961, Floyd's cave was purchased by Mammoth Cave National Park, and it was closed to the public. There would be no more visitors. The entrance itself to Floyd's cave was closed with a steel gate and bolted and welded shut. But the Collins family never gave up objecting to Collins' body being left in the cave. And here is where the story ends. In 1989, at the Collins' request, the National Park Service ventured into Floyd's cave. Continuing on a more than 60-year tradition, a team of people worked over the course of several days to remove him from the cave. They took him out, left the cave, locked it behind them, and laid Floyd to rest at the Mammoth Cave Baptist Church Cemetery. After 64 years in Sand Cave, he is now finally at peace. The end. Thank you to Wendigoon as Floyd.
If you don't let me out, I'm going to hire a gang of hitmen to come to your house.
Csak 64 évig feküdt abban a kibaszott kévben. Hát ez nem volt túl vidám. Én azt hittem, hogy ebből lesz valami... Hát ez a sztori, ez nem semmi. Hát ezt nem hiszem el.
House and kill your family.
Samito as Homer.
Tessék?
The BTS meal McDonald's bag that has
I'm
McDonald's
hungry.
and BTS. Shut the fuck up and eat some BTS, bro.
Jó, ez így elég dark.
I'm enthusiastic, but would ultimately duck out the back exit.
Rusty Cage as Gerald.
Oh, well, hello there. Haven't seen y'all in a while. Welcome to my new home.
And many kudos as Burden.
Hey, buddy. You right down there?
I can.
You sleepy?
I can.
We get your coffee?
Cold and
Little cup of joe? Little cup of joe?
Tehát kontextusra elég morbid, nem?
Also, by the way, in case you're confused about the channels, this is how it works now. And do not forget, World of Tanks, none of this would have happened.
Hát ez durva volt. Szép napot, Alex, és azt hittem el vagy tűnve, hú, de meglepődtem, mikor megláttalak, meg vagyok már másfél éve. Ez el vagyok tűnve. De örülök, hogy én találtam. Slut 069, köszi szépen a 6. hónapot. De hát hallod, bazzeg, ez mi volt? A csávót nem engedték megdögleni. Hát bazzeg, hát, és még utána kirabolták a sírt, eljételték a csávót egy bokorba, és visszahozták, és oda láncolták. Sírral együtt, érted? Te itt fogsz megrohadni. Nem lesz feltámadás, nem lesz semmi. Itt abban a dobozban fogsz rohadni. Fú, bazd meg, hát ez kegyetlen van. Én azt hittem, hogy ez sokkal vidámabb lesz, azért mondtam, hogy nézzük meg, mert mondom, eddig 1%-os érdekelt ez a barlang exploration. Most nullánál tartunk, tehát 0,5 volt a videó elején, most lementünk teljesen nullára, tehát fuck this shit. Hát ez egy szomorú sztori volt. És akkor én Honor of Floyd, még azt sem tudják, hogy meghalt, de már fesztivált tartanak, és lángos 2000-ér, és gyere hajlod a csövű puskával lövöldözni a Luffy-t, hogy nyerj egy macit. Tudok még ilyet ajánlani, ha érdekel. Oh, fuck this shit, bro. Oh, no. Oh, fuck no. Dude. És érted? És nem hagyta. Nem, egyszerűen nem lehetett onnan kijönni. Egyszerűen nem. 64 évig volt bent. Mondom, utálok ilyet mondani, de szerintem ötször nagyobb mákja lett volna baznak, ha nem ordibál, hanem csak úgy ott marad. Vagy ha nem hallja meg senki. Vagy ha nem hagyja ott a kabátot. Hát ez durva volt. Hát most vidám volt, amikor elkezdtem ezt, mert ugye mondom, jaj, egy kis szüni, meg nagy takarítás, hát lehet mindjárt lefekszem aludni. Mert oké, ilyen tök light-hearted volt a videó nyilván, tehát az nem volt annyira, tehát ezekkel így a voice acting-el meg mindennel kicsit el volt baromkodva, de azt így beleképzeld ezt élőbe, hát jaj. Hát jaj. Ja, a DC-re küld be, ha van hasonló videó, amit szeretnéd, hogy megnézzünk, vagy csak szeretnéd ajánlani a többieknek. Az DC-n a videó ajánló szobába lehet csinálni. Ja jó, sorsoljunk játékot. Én nem vagyok a játék sorsolás ellensége. Érted? Hát na, ez nem volt vidám vége, nem. Pedig oda lehúzott az életről, hallod amúgy? Pedig úgy... Pedig jó lett volna. Örültem volna, de hát... Hát nem lett mindennek jó vége, persze, csak... tudom én. Kicsit ugye... elbóbiskoltam tőle. Sorsolok egy Resident Evil 3 remake-et, mit szóltak feliratkozóknak. Aztán majd nem feliratkozóknak mást. Ó, ez egy jó drága game, hallod? Ez megy most a subáknak, és utána megy egy mindenkinek is. Indul! A Resident Evil 3 remake Steam kulcs. Hát durvi volt, hallod. Szerencsétlen bazeg nem engedte a Cave, tehát én hallod. Egyszerűen nem engedte a Cave. Na, mindenki, aki feliratkozó beírta, majd szar egy. Alexi Floyd hulláját, szegény Floyd, bezeg. Csáó, mit végig nem szenvedett. Oké, lezártam, pikkelek egy winnerót. Jackda! Te nyertél! Jackda az egyéves... Mit megijedtem? Az egyéves cucliával nyert. Ott a Resident Evil 3 jó szórakozás hozzá. Jó, és most menjem mindenkinek, nézzünk egy ilyen kisebb játékot. Egy gas station szimulátort kisorsolok, ez tök jó az a game. Azt én kivittem így, pont mikor beütött a Covid, így játszogattam vele, mert nem tudtam aludni. Mert annyira fájt a torkam, hogy egyszerűen nem tudtam aludni. És... majdnem elbasztam. Bocsánat. És... na erre most már mindenki jelentkezhet. És tök jót szórakoztam vele. Nem egy hosszú game, meg nem tart sokáig, de egy tök jó game. Erre mindenki jelentkezhet nyugodtan. Tényleg meglepően jó, tehát én nem szeretem ezeket a szimulátorokat, és mégis ez egy meglepően király game. Ez a gas station-ös. Nagyon jót szórakoztam vele. Meglepődtem, hogy van olyan szimulátor, ami effektíve jól meg van csinálva. Tudom, hogy van, de hogy így érted. Mostanában elmentél asset flippekre. De ez nem volt rossz, effektíve tök élvezhető volt. Na, sorsolom is, mert utána megyek tovább takarítani. Pikkero, Vinnero! Milos 001, te nyertél! Jéj! Írd be, hogy nagy a begyed. Mert csak akkor tudom odaadni a kulcsodat, az a baj. Ha hatalmas bazingád van. Rengeteg, 2 írdatlan nagy bazumbaz. Azt csak akkor tudom odaadnia. Te már nyertél 2-szer, Milosz. Nyersz egyszer 8. hó, 9. hó, és most nyersz 10. hóban is valamit. Ká. Ott van, elküldtem, jó szórakozás használd. Jó szórakozás használd. Egészségedre! De jó, már 4-szer nyert. Hát ez van, random. Itt mindenki nyerhet. Na jó van, köszönöm szépen, hogy itt voltatok. Lehetek jók, ha tudtok. A többi nem számít. Csúszik a hang? Nem csúszik. Oh no! Oh no! Ez nagyon a csöcsi. Oh shit! Oh no, és mi van, ha beszippant? Oh!